allow themselves to
The
be
large
used against their
population.
own
It will be weird on January 16th. Well, I know January 16th.
Getting shootings all the time in Gaza right now. So, yeah.
Laid off all the workers. They are this week doing something.
¿Qué tipo de grupos y organizaciones están involucrados en las protestas actuales en Colombia?
La ciudadanía, ciudadanías libres, principalmente.
Citizens of the country, principally.
Desde el 28 de abril, las centrales obreras, los sindicatos convocaron un paro nacional.
From the 21st of April, there has been a national strike supported strongly by the unions, but that mainly the support comes from the people, the citizens.
La razón era porque el gobierno pretendía imponer más impuestos a los pobres.
The reason is because the government tried to impose more taxes on the poorest people.
Un año atrás, en el 2019, 2 años atrás,
2 years ago in 2009, 19,
el gobierno había exonerado a transnacionales y a grandes propietarios, a las élites nacionales y extranjeras, había hecho una ley para exonerarlos de impuestos.
So 2 years ago, the government reduced the amount of taxes on big businesses, foreigners, and foreign investors.
Es decir, Robin Hood al revés.
It's like Robin Hood, but the reverse.
¿Sabes Robin Hood?
Yeah.
¿Okay? Entonces le quitaba a los pobres para darle a los ricos.
Taking away from the poor to give to the rich.
¿Cómo es en Estados Unidos?
When
¿Los ricos
both
pagan impuestos?
President Biden and Trump were at the border. You know, Trump went to Eagle Pass, the same place we were. He's not the only Republican who's gone there to try to rile up racist venom during this election year, which we're just going to keep seeing more and more of. Before he went, the Republican congressional leaders went down there to grandstand and spit racist venom.
Right.
They had some right-wing religious group that did a caravan down there that was anti-immigrant. And anyway, so they're getting a lot of people going there from, some of the most powerful people in the country trying to make immigration the dividing issue in this election year, as often happens. And Eagle Pass is an interesting place. So it's right on the border with Mexico. It's got a sister city on the other side of the U.S.-Mexico border, which is called Piedras Negras. And really the level of border militarization that exists now is unprecedented in modern U.S. history. So it has continued to increase, whether it's been a Republican or a Democrat in the presidency. It keeps increasing with every administration. And so, but it wasn't always that way, right?
Right.
Not that long ago, people who lived in Piedras Negras could just go across to Eagle Pass for lunch for the day and come back. And that was actually very common, or people who worked on one side and lived on the other. And it was much more of a sister city in the sense that Minneapolis and St. Paul are sister cities, where even though, I live in St. Paul, some people in Minneapolis think it's like St. Paul's like the other side of the world, and why would you ever go there? But just kidding. It's very easy. You just go across a bridge, right? And that's how things used to be, a lot more like that there. And now it's not that way at all. You have really long lines coming into the US from Mexico, from Piedras Negras. And so, one interesting thing, right when we first drove into Eagle Pass, you immediately see a huge law enforcement presence. And that presence is everything from local police to, I think, county police. And then you, of course, see tons of Customs and Border Patrol vehicles. And you also see the Texas National Guard. You see the National Guard from other Republican-led states like Florida, who have gone in to quote unquote help. And you have also U.S. Army that we saw there as well. And I can get into a little bit more about what all of those different forces are doing there.
What you know about Jessca?
New way for the water.
What you know about Jessca?
New way for the water.
Nick is fucked up at the urban cabin, and I'm fucked up at the urban cabin. The urban cabin. Yeah. If you know it, just sing along. The urban cabin. Saw a mouse run around and around, and I said, who cares? I'll make my own trap with some Cheetos and an old box of beer. Don't forget about the sunflower seeds. Yeah, I used some of those and some sunflower seeds and maybe some Doritos, but no, that mouse was too smart for me. At the urban cabin.
There's no more reds in the union. We never talk about workers' rights. There's no more reds in the union. They tell us that it leads to fights. There's no more reds in the union. Our leadership has always said that folks who talk like that are red, so we listen to the boss instead. There's no more reds in the union. Each year we have a swell affair. There's no more reds in the union. The bosses and their friends are there. There's no more reds in the union. They give us brats, they give us beer, but one thing to me seems unclear. Why do we eat this well just once a year? There's no more reds in the union. We got a union that brags about preventing strikes. There's no more Reds in the union, and they leave the boss to do as they like. There's no more Reds in the union. And if these sellouts hold the keys, and all they want is labor peace, then how will we ever slay the beast with no more Reds in the union? I ask you, if these sellouts hold the keys, and all they want is labor peace, then how will we ever slay the beast with no more Reds in the union?
Urban Cabin Studios!
What do we want?
Fair contracts!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Fair contracts!
When do we want it?
Now!
Alright, you can either go or you can either march, but please take some coffee.
There is only one solution, communist revolution.
There is only one solution, Intifada Revolution!
There is only one solution, Intifada revolution.
There is only one solution, Intifada Revolution!
There is only one solution, Intifada revolution.
There is only one solution, Communist Revolution!
There is only one solution, communist revolution.
1, 2, 3, 4, we declare the class war!
1, 2, 3, 4, we declare the class war.
Northrop Grumman. Their mission statement claims they are committed to advancing global security and human discovery in support of our customers' mission around the world. Here's a sample of their customers and their mission. Northrop Grumman makes the missile systems used by the apartheid state of Israel against Palestine. Drones patrol the border, monitor immigrant communities, and are even deployed to spy on peaceful protesters. One of Northrop Grumman's Minnesota-based projects is the Lethality Enhanced Ordnance, or LEO, intended to be a safer cluster-type munition due to the reduced risk of unexploded ordnance. The U.S. condemns Russia for using cluster bombs, but both the U.S. and Ukraine have refused to sign conventions banning their use. Northrop Grumman is involved in almost every aspect of U.S. nuclear weapons arsenal, especially the air and land pillars of the nuclear triad. A month ago, they unveiled the B-21 Raider, the first sixth-generation stealth bomber that has increased payload capacity and can deliver nuclear warheads further with its expanded range. The cost, $203 billion for 100 bombers, though an unknown amount of black budget taxpayer funding was also applied to the project. Other big contracts include $35.1 billion for subsidiary ATK launch system for the Pantex plant in the Y-12 National Security Complex, $13.3 billion for the Sentinel ground-based strategic deterrent and intercontinental ballistic missile system, $1.7 billion to continue the Minuteman III sustainment support project, $893 million for U.S. and U.K. Trident II missile systems, and much more. For context, the U.S. spent $4 billion to provide 2.5 billion breakfasts to kids as part of the Black Panther Party-inspired USDA school breakfast program. The U.S. military budget will never face serious cuts under capitalism, for the same way the world will never know peace or security under capitalism, because it is not profitable, and war is. Voting for Democrats will not change this. In fact, just a few days ago, Vice President Kamala Harris was there to personally award Northrop Grumman Executive and Director of Business Development Doug Hurley for the propulsion system that launched nuclear weapons into space. The Congressional Medal of Honor. The obscene amounts the United States spends on war also fund the lobbying efforts of war profiteers. Northrop Grumman went from spending $4.9 million between 1991 and 2002 to $364 million from 1999 to 2001. Even 364 million is small compared to the 14 trillion spent since the start of the war in Afghanistan, and it is estimated that a third to half of this went to defense contractors. This aggressive lobbying has meant appointments friendly to Northrop Grumman's interests in strategic office and ensured an obscene military budget. The influence of for-profit defense contractors opens up the tap of taxpayer funding for a never-ending supply of generous no-bid military contracts. The profit margin of these contracts in turn paying for the campaigns of warmongers in Republican Party. This is why government spending bills for basic human needs like housing, education, and healthcare are always debated in terms of what we can afford. But a blank check for military spending is the norm. I am 19 years old and these profiteers already seek to prey upon me and others entering our college institutions, whose pockets are lined by companies such as Northrop Grumman in exchange for a prime supply of young people to funnel into their service, as well as high-ranking board positions such as the one American University handed out to former Northrop CEO Wesley Bush. We as a generation will not allow our labor, our living conditions, and our lives to be thrown away for the capitalist class's luxury. They will have to drag us kicking and screaming.
Sorry, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever.
No KKK,
Urban Gammon Studios. Urban Gammon Studios.
TV.
So they clump up together, and then you have a crunch, which is a real French crunch, definitely. A real extraordinary flavor. The kirsch does, and they are glazed. And
Socialist News and Views.
That means that that means it's a movement. That means that other people are catching on to this, and that's how we'll change this thing. When other people begin to get together and say, "Hey, you know, they're right. Those brothers and sisters are right. People should have a place to stay. You know, banks should renegotiate with folks. People shouldn't have to pay exorbitant interest rates. You know, principals should be reduced. You know, why not? You know, especially after the big rip-off that happened. You know, if the banks could get $16 trillion, the least we can do as working class folks could get some housing, man.
So our organization is the Indigenous Protector Movement, or IPM for short. We're a pretty new organization. We were just officially founded in November. But all of us that are co-founders, board members, or now our current staff come from a long history of grassroots movement work over our lifetimes. And so the Indigenous Protector Movement was born out of this need in community. And when I say in community, I'm speaking on South Minneapolis, in the Indigenous community for an action-based organization. So when we say action, we mean that could be a protest, a march, a rally, a community event, a gathering, a ceremony, whatever that action would be being taken place in the Indigenous community. And these actions being led by community members, and that us as an organization are able to step in to provide people, expertise, resources for those actions to be as effective and elevated as possible. So a lot of our work has specifically been focused on protecting and keeping community safe, right? And so like we talk a lot about, and I mean like amongst our team, that how do we as Indigenous people, through our sovereign rights as Indigenous people, protect our own when the system fails to do so, right? And so like you get into this thing like where, you know, Minneapolis Police Department doesn't respond to calls, our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives are just like, I see a new faces on Facebook every day. We have this drug epidemic that is like ravaging our people. And so how do we as people, as community, protect ourselves, protect our people, protect our community when all of these things are going on? And so like that is really been the center of our conversations lately. And it's sad, honestly, because you can listen and read to conversations or speeches from civil rights movement activists and leaders from the 70s and 80s, and they still apply today to on in South Minneapolis. You know, they talk about, of course, like then they were dealing with alcohol more, but still like that same conversation was happening. They talk about police brutality. That same conversation is happening. You know, the DOJ investigation and report that Native people were found to experience police brutality and violence from the Minneapolis Police Department more so than any other demographic. And that was like a recent study. We're talking about post George Floyd's murder.
Right.
And so we really we do strategize as a team and as a community on how we can combat these kind of issues that are happening. And unfortunately, even though like Minneapolis is our community, right? Like that's where we're centered. These are issues across the board in urban Indigenous populations across Turtle Island. And so like, I think that these strategies that we're talking about, these conversations that we're having, these blueprints that we're building, could be applied here and then spread across Turtle Island and maybe help other communities as well. So we opened an office on Franklin Avenue. We have a small office that we've been operating out of just above Maria's. You know where that is, but across from NAC, across from the Native American Community Clinic. And so what we have been discussing is the development of what we're right now calling like a community safety center, where it would be a center that would be like our office space, would also be like a center that a lot of our community-based safety patrols could function out of, you know, whether it's the Little Earth Protector, Men's Warrior Society, Many Shields, or a Women's Warrior Society or AIM Patrol could utilize this space to operate out of the most effectively and efficiently to respond to community needs. There would be community space that's accessible and affordable for community, and that there would be space that was safe and protected, like for traditional ceremonies and traditions to happen. So these are some of the things that like we're talking about.
Over 20 years of my life to come out of the closet, and I will die defending my right to dress how I want, medicate how I want, fuck who I want, and love who I want. And this is exactly why we organize Taking Back Pride. Queer people cannot afford complacency. We cannot afford to believe that corporations or do-nothing nonprofits will protect our rights. And we can't afford to stand by and celebrate the same police forces that will be tasked with enforcing these backwards-ass laws. Time to organize, to be ready to fight back using any means necessary. But in order to do that, random isolated actions are not enough. We need numbers and we need organization, because our enemies are highly organized and all too ready to crush us to benefit themselves. Even this protest on its own is not enough. After we raise awareness, after we educate each other, we must be prepared to think strategically, to use every tool we have at our disposal to secure our rights for good. One way that TCC4J is fighting back is through community control of the police. Despite being a sanctuary state, Minnesota continues to fail the LGBT community by allowing police departments to clear encampments, creating instability and trauma for an already suffering population. LGBTQ identified people make up 11% of the unhoused population, despite making just up 4% of the overall population. This proves that policing is not just a hindrance to the struggle for black liberation, but for the liberation of all of us who are oppressed under capitalism. If the police are the armed enforcers of capitalism, join us in crippling the enemy by turning public safety into the hands of the working class so that we can ban encampment evictions and all other forms of police violence.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Back to 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12, 12, 12. Who's streets? Who's streets? Who's streets? Who's streets?
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their life.
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their life.
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their life.
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their life.
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their life.
From Minnesota to Palestine, from Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their lives.
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their lives.
From Minnesota to Palestine,
kids all want to live their lives.
Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea.
On the Rimrock Trail here, going out a whole span here. It's pretty cool. So it's a nice trail. A lot of good smells. A lot of good smells too, right, babe? Smells. There's a floral scent and bark and a lot of good lush moss. It makes you want to roll around it and take a nap. Yeah, it's beautiful here. Here's some of the. Yeah, here, let's see some lush. Here's some lush moss. Petting it here, petting it. Ooh, very lush moss. That's how you know it's good moss. There, you can pet it. That is good quality moss there. Look at that stuff. That's some new moss coming in. Moss is growing. Now that is quality moss. Come back to the Rimrock Trail to get all the best moss. Leave a comment below. We're here just getting on the Cave-In Rock Ferry here in Cave-In Rock, Illinois. And then we're going to go across to Kentucky. So we're on the ferry. Here's the ferry right here. Pretty cool. And yeah, so should be fun. It's a nice day outside. Look at the clouds. Can't really see the. I guess you can see the
boat's
water.
name is Becky.
The boat's name is Becky. Becky D. Port of Cave Rock Inn right there. There it is. There's
Becky
the water
with the
out there.
Good ferry.
That's silly, babe. Say it again.
Becky with the good ferry.
I love you, babe. Should be fun.
Guy in front
Wish
of
us
us
luck.
has Alabama plates.
That's true.
I wonder if he's driving back home.
Man, it could be, I suppose. Checks out. I was going to see the back end of the ferry there with out that window there, and there's the guy running around. Ferryman. Now we took a ferry across from Cave-In Rock to a road in Kentucky that isn't by any city, and then we drove down to Marion, Kentucky, and then went across an hour in beautiful Paducah. Kentucky, a lot of fun here, a lot of cool, well, a few cool looking buildings anyway, so we're just walking around downtown in the center of Paducah here somewhere, walking around. There's the courthouse. That's something. We parked in front of a law firm that's down there, so that's cool. Now we're just walking around beautiful Paducah. This is it. You saw it here first, folks. Leave a comment down below if you love Paducah. It's our last night at camp here, and we're just cooking a great meal. If you like cooking great meals, definitely put a comment down below. Right, babe? I love you, babe. They just got to put a comment down below, right, babe?
Right down below.
Exactly. Look at all that food. We're gonna have a schmorg. We got some apples in there, some baking apples. We got some onions, peppers, and
Potato.
sweet peppers and potato in there. We got our old-fashioned wieners, and we got our gluten-free buns there. We got a good fire going down below here, you can see. So that looks like good food. If you agree, put a comment down below.
Urban Cabin Studios.
TV.
for being here. Just wanted to say that we're here to tell President Biden to stop Line 3. And we're also here, I know many of us, in a lot of grief, whether it be with the decrease in our air quality through the wildfires in Canada, or just recently the Greenwood fire, with the drought that's going on, and the pollution of our water, and how we're seeing this in our patient population. And this is not just for our children or grandchildren, but for us right now, and our patients right now at the bedside. And so, I would like to welcome one of the doctors that is working on the front lines, Dr. Lalitha Shirapaneni, MD and PH.
My name is Lalitha Shirapaneni. I'm an internal medicine physician. Today we're here to call on President Biden and the Army Corps to revoke the clean water permits and immediately put an end to construction of Line 3. We are joined by health professionals from across the country today. Health professionals in Oregon, Washington, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Michigan, Wisconsin, Maine, Vermont, Philadelphia, DC, Maryland, and Virginia are delivering letters to their local Army Corps offices. We're also joined by some health professionals on social media from Canada who are working upstream to stop the flow of tar sands oil and working to oppose the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. They stand in solidarity with us because as health professionals, we know that climate change is a health crisis. And climate change knows no borders. And the Line 3 will have an impact on patients and communities all over the country. This is why health professionals across the country are also involved in climate justice fights. And I wanted to mention some of those movements that they're involved in because we stand in solidarity with them too. In Washington, health professionals, just like in Minnesota, the Washington state has allowed fossil fuel projects to continue even as their state burns. In Tacoma, the Puget Sound Energy is violating Medicine Creek Treaty by building an enormous fracked gas facility on ancestral Puyallup tribe lands. Boo indeed. In Oregon, health professionals are working to stop Zenith Oil. In Wisconsin, clinicians for climate action are also caring for communities that are suffering the harms of Enbridge pipelines. In addition, they are also working with, they also stand in solidarity with the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians who are opposing the Namaji Trail Energy Center. In Michigan, I think Michigan health professionals probably know best about the dangers of oil spills from Enbridge pipelines. In 2010, the Kalamazoo River spilled, this is the costliest inland oil spill. Oil spilled into the Kalamazoo River, and it's the same tar sands oil that will go through Line 3. In Massachusetts, they're fighting Enbridge compressor station in Weymouth, and Virginia clinicians are fighting the Lambert compressor station as the Mountain Valley Pipeline goes through indigenous lands. There is a common thread here. You know, yes, all of these projects worsen the climate crisis, but we see that indigenous communities who hold centuries of wisdom of what we now call in the sciences as planetary health, they are suffering the worst impacts, not just to their bodies, not just their land, but to their bodies as they defend sacred land and water against fossil fuel infrastructure. So as health professionals, we will work towards a fossil-free future for the health of our communities, our indigenous communities, and our future generations. The science is clear. The time is now. President Biden, stop Line 3.
Good afternoon. My name is Shiori Kanda Mohammed, a cardiovascular ICU nurse at the North Memorial. I currently serve as the first vice president of Minnesota Nurses Association and a steward and an elected M&A co-chair at North Memorial. On March 14, North Memorial CEO Trevor Swalish announced the elimination of 103 positions, closure of the hospital's NICU, closure of all outpatient mental health services, and reduction of the inpatient psychiatric beds from 26 to 18. 26 nurses from NICU are currently going through the process of layoffs. We, M&A nurses at North Memorial, oppose these cuts because they reduce access to essential services for an already underserved community. North Memorial's NICU census has been decreasing in recent years, a direct result of North's decision to grow an upscale mother-baby center in Maple Grove Hospital, an affluent counterpart, opened in 2009, and our labor and delivery department has seen a steady decrease in the number of deliveries because of it. As a level 1 trauma center, we have taken care of many patients, including emergency cases that require both NICU nurses and L&D nurses who are highly skilled in their own specialty. With the loss of NICU, North Memorial will transition to a model in which any baby born that requires emergent interventions will have to be stabilized without a team of NICU nurses until the baby can be transferred to a NICU hospital. This change will place vulnerable babies at risk, along with workers with the lack of experience. We as healthcare workers are concerned with the reduction of inpatient psychiatric beds because it will lead to an increased number of mental health patients with emergency needs being held for hours to days in a room without a window in an emergency department. In some cases, patients are being discharged without getting psychiatric care that they came in for. We believe that these patients also occupy non-psychiatric beds that would otherwise be used for medical needs. These changes may increase wait time for all patients' admissions, regardless of their diagnosis. Psychiatric nurses strongly feel the reduction of beds is to justify laying off psychologists and other professionals and using less nurses as a money-saving tactic. Eliminating outpatient mental health clinics on the bus line will result in more than 3,400 community members losing access to mental health services in a climate where finding mental health providers is extremely difficult statewide, in a particularly vulnerable community with challenges with transportation. We're also a concern about potentially increased incidents of workplace and community violence due to mental health patients' needs not being met. Many healthcare workers' assaults are directly related to untreated mental illness. Now we have several speakers here for you today. First is Jim Martinson, an M&A nurse, who will read a statement made by NICU nurses.
Realize we got an uprise.
Baby.
Mobilize.
What we got to
unify everybody.
What we got to
realize we need an uprise.
Baby.
Mobilize.
We got to
unify.
What we got to
realize we need an uprise.
Baby.
Mobilize.
What we got to
unify.
What we got to
realize we need an uprise.
Baby. Mobilize. 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 Thank you.
We're told that we find some way to blame the victim for what happened to them, and we find some way to let the killer walk, to let the killer off the hook. And it's not because we love that killer, it's because we're letting ourselves off the hook. We're telling ourselves, I'm not a bigot, I'm not a racist, that's not me. The reality is that a long time ago, somebody decided that we weren't going to be human anymore. Somebody decided that a human being, just by the virtue of being human, isn't qualified for full dignity on this planet. Somebody decided that you had to have membership in a person, in a specific race, in a specific culture, in a specific religion, that you had to be a male, you had to be straight, you had to belong to some crew in order to be a human being. Well, when we accepted that, when we accepted that not everybody's humanity is valid, we accepted that our own humanity was invalid as well. And so if we want to get anywhere, we have to be self-loving enough to be honest with ourselves, to do some soul searching. And I'm not talking about soul searching like to see what's inside our soul. We have to find what the hell happened to our soul. To look at some people out there like me that had a complexion for the protection. We gotta raise our voices. These beautiful black, brown, yellow, red people been saying this shit for years. We gotta decide to rejoin the human family again. We're not talking just about this case. We're not talking about just this issue. We're talking about whether or not we're gonna be human beings again. Please. Solidarity is what my good friend, our good friend, Mo used to preach. He would preach solidarity because he would say, separated, this is what we are, but together, we can get a lot of this shit done. And when Mo says you can fight,
You had little all-white towns in Utah, for example, marching for Black Lives.
Right.
That means, by definition, the vast majority of those people who were mobilized don't have past experience in movements, don't have organizational homes, don't have a clear sense at all of what to do next. But it's important to know that when these upsurges happen, there's always some consciousness that has shifted. And what we're waiting for or trying to figure out is, well, what is the next spark that can set that in motion? And that's been the history of our movement. Sometimes you can tell that the kindling is there,
right,
but you don't know what the spark will be. So
Socialist News and Views.
So just a few months ago, there was somebody with the Israeli delegation tested positive for COVID. Karine, the press secretary, was questioned, oh, well, was this an exposure for Biden? And she said, no, everyone who meets with the president is PCR tested. Now, people are not PCR tested for the flu when they meet with Biden. They're not
Right.
they're not tested for colds when they meet with Biden. They're tested for COVID-19 because they know it's not a flu. They know it's not a cold. And even if you want to make the argument, well, they're just so busy, so they can't afford to get COVID. You know who else can't afford to get COVID because they're so busy? Single moms, people who are the only breadwinner for their family and have no paid days off. You know, it's really disturbing to me the way some like lefty people don't think about the fact that sickening other people, even if they don't have long-term impacts from it, which you don't know, but even if they don't, not everybody has a work from home job where they can take unlimited paid time off. Most people do not. So it is a workers' rights issue. And you do need to be mindful of spreading germs when there are basic interventions that you can afford, that you can use to keep other people safe in your community.
It's like Nikki said, it's 300 people were killed over the period of few weeks. But from many sources, we have heard the actual number is even greater. We have heard that the records were wiped out from the death registers. So the actual number is not known, but it can be much more, many more than that, 300. And also how this movement grew so much larger. Moment told you the reason. I also think that it's, the students. I mean, if it were the killing of other groups, maybe teachers, maybe some other groups, the people's sentiment won't get hurt in this way, but the killings of students, I mean, if you see their age, I mean, how young, how innocent they're. And they were fighting for a proper cause. I mean, after the liberation war, in 1972, in 1971, Bangladesh fought for its liberation from Pakistan. And then in 1972, the then Prime Minister, he's called Bangabandhu, when he said that, well, we'll give this much quota for the freedom fighters, everybody agreed with that, right? I mean, they fought for our liberation, and it's very valid. But then again, at some point, Sheikh Hasina, she said, well, we'll give this quota to their children. Well, there was some talking, but still people were okay. But then grandchildren, it's like it's a pyramid. I mean, one person, their sons and daughters, and their grandchildren, it's so big. And for Bangladesh, I mean, there is not much good opportunities for jobs. So everybody sees the government jobs as, a very solid, secure way of earning their livelihood. So it's a very valid cause. And from what Moment said, that in 2018, these students, they're called Gen Z. I mean, this movement is it is called the first ever Gen Z led movement or revolution. So these people were in high schools then, and they fought for the same quota, and that quota was abolished. And then in 2024, I mean, it's so much. I mean, it's unreasonable. Why the government, why the previous government, why Sheikh Hasina would be so adamant to, regain or reestablish this quota? It seemed like, well, there are some pitfalls. I mean, not everybody, it needs some certificate, and there are many ways to get this certificate of, well, I'm a freedom fighter, these are my grandchildren, so for many of us, it was, it was deemed as a way to put their own people into government services, into everywhere.
Right.
So they can remain in power for a even longer time. So yeah, this is a valid cause. And this is the killing of many young, innocent children. And it hurt the sentiment all over the Bangladeshi people. And later on, not only the students, their parents, their teachers, every people from, every walk of life, the rickshaw pullers, the bus drivers, everyone, they agreed with that and they came to the streets. So this way it grew so large. And also Gen Z, I mean, they're taken as well. They're so much addicted to social media, but they use this social media
right
to how to say, they use this social media to show the people, well, these things are happening, this brutality is happening, please talk for us. So yeah,
they're using it well.
Yeah. And is it a revolution? In many ways it is. I mean, although the former government was it was a democracy, but it was a democracy only in name, only in the names. It was mostly an autocratic. It was mostly a tyranny. So, I mean, when the quota movement, it got changed to the movement to let the previous government out of power and to form a new government. When we heard what the students had to say, we heard that they want a very new establishment where the democracy would be regained. People will have their rights to vote properly, to raise their concerns, to talk against the government if the government is not doing anything right.
Right.
So yes, in many ways we can call it a revolution. A revolution to regain the democracy.
I just want to echo the calls today for the release of the body-worn camera footage, as well as all of the public data, including the names of the officers that were involved in this incident. Under Minnesota law, those names are public immediately and at all times.
Right.
To speak about this incident, we do not know much yet, and that's why we're asking for the release of the data, but we do know a lot about police violence in the state of Minnesota, as well as across the country. Native people are killed at the highest rates, and then Black folks are shortly followed behind them and are killed at disproportionate rates across the country, and those disparities are even heightened here in Minnesota. It's been said that St. Paul Police Department is one of the most deadly police departments in the state of Minnesota. That continues to be true to this day. They just killed a Native woman, Pepsi, earlier this year, and they killed many others. And so we just echo calls here. One thing I want to point out is that last year, the most people in the past decade were killed by law enforcement across the United States, and we are on a record to break that record this year in 2024. And another study just came out recently that of people killed by strangers, 1/3 of those are killed by police. Yet, crime rates are dropping across the country, crime rates are dropping in Minneapolis and in St. Paul, and the number of arrests across the data are also on the decline. So I would like somebody in law enforcement to account for why their officers are continuing to kill people at record rates. Thank you.
So with racial equity, we have to learn that it doesn't just affect Black people, it affects all people. And we all have a job to rectify racism. So, as I said before, I don't like to talk about racism. No one does. But you have to talk about it. It has to be in a discussion. So, with that being said, what brought me here today is that I wrote a letter against my employer, Delta Airlines, for a video that they played to the flying public, thanks to my coworker Pat Gores, who showed it to me. And I sat with it, I wrestled with it for a few days, and it was just baffling to me. It wasn't that Delta Airlines committed a crime, but Delta Airlines did not bag what they were showing to the flying public. What they showed the flying public was, yes, we support Dr. Martin Luther King. Yes, we support all of this about Dr. Martin Luther King. But they left out the most important thing about Dr. Martin Luther King, what he died for. Anyone in here know what he died for?
It was a union rally, wasn't it?
It was a union rally, exactly.
Sanitation workers?
Sanitation workers, exactly. So, as you know, we took a trip because of that letter. We decided that we wanted to do more than just talk about it. We wanted to be about it. We was going to do better than what Delta Airlines had done. All Delta Airlines had done was made a video with their top executive and none of the workers, none of the rank and files, just their EVPs, their senior VPs, and to our sadness, not even the CEO. Why wouldn't he be a part of a video that was talking about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King? Okay, now me. At that point, I became very frustrated and very angry because Delta doesn't see themselves as racist. Delta may see themselves as diverse. Anyone can be diverse. Inclusive can be anyone. But can you be fair? If there's a Delta, and I like to do this here because you never know who works with Delta or who's for Delta. So if anyone in here that works for Delta Airlines, can you truly say that Delta has done justice as a working towards making sure that all people, especially black people, black indigenous people of color, has felt the fairness of equity? I will speak for myself. I haven't felt that. Out of 25 years plus, and I count all my years, it would be 28 had I not left for 1 year and came back in February. I have never felt the equity of Delta Airlines.
Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is new now. Come on, old man, let's paint is